back around the time the fisheries was being formulated, aquatic fish were actually overfished. And that was because of the success of working with fish weirs all along the coast. And so they were scooping them right up. So what are we going to do? Let's get some science involved in this. So Spencer Baird, he was commissioned by President Grant's administration to come up with a plan for a fish and wildlife setup. And where would we want to set this up? And so he got together with some of his colleagues, the naturalists and scientists that was there at the time, and they said, well, if you're looking for diversity of organisms, Woods Hole would be the best place to go because of the difference in the depth of the water. There's a big difference in the aquatic organisms that live here. Everything south of Cape Cod, we probably have access to most of the organisms between here and, say, the Carolinas. And all I have to do is travel to Sandwich, and I've got access to everything from there to Canada, a whole different ecosystem. And it's like, if you're going to study organisms, where would you want to set up? Where you could go out your front door, have access to these, go out the back door, where you've got all those cold water organisms that are living all the way up to the Canadian border. And so that's how it all got started.
We would be assigned to go out and collect animals that were needed at the lab, and there might have been, 70 labs at MBL. And what we would do is get our list, and it might have 4 or 5 different animals on it, say 100 sea urchins, which would be a special range in Vineyard Sound right off Falmouth. And then we'd have to get maybe 50 or 100 surf clams, and that would be Menemsha bite, and then go over to say West Chop and collect 50 Ager starfish, meaning they would have eggs because some of these animals were used in fertilization studies. But we had dredging boats that ranged from 36 feet to 55 feet, and we had 2 trap boats, which were a little bit smaller, the 23-foot long trap boats, and they would be used for more local collecting where water depth didn't allow the larger boats to get into. We collected a lot of animals in support of science here, and the main thing that was ingrained in my mind is that this is for science, and you treated the animals carefully. You wanted and had to get them back alive and in good shape for the research.
Collecting is kind of like Easter egg hunting or treasure hunting. Our main job is to provide animals that these courses use. We'll use a small boat, we'll use a small dredge. We do a lot with plankton or plankton tows. We do digging, wet digging and dry digging on the beaches. Water is key as far as keeping a lot of these animals alive. So having a good water supply that's clean and filtered, we have to chill the water. By the time the courses would start in the summer, most of the animals have spawned off. So we're trying to hold them, so we'll collect early and then hold them in chilled water to prevent them from spawning. Across the street there's a dock, we call it the pump dock, and it has these water intakes, and it's pumped up to the roof where we have 9 huge holding tanks. And then we've got different filtration systems, so it depends on what the animals need and what the usage is. We can also control the different temperatures, but we do supply a lot of colleges, a lot of schools, and we do it all through the winter. The summer, the spring, it's something that keeps us going.
So Dr. Bang and Dr. Jack Levin from Hopkins were working on the limulus, and what they had to rely on was high quality limulus coming into the lab with no breakage, no bleeding, not bumped up, because the blood would be no good. So that they would work with the collecting department and say, okay, we need to start the work at, let's say, 8 o'clock in the morning. Can you have this stuff for us? Definitely. And I'm convinced that because of the quality of the limulus, that they were able to generate that whole limulus assay, which is being used today in human health. The common person would understand that if he or she came into the ER with a screaming fever and blood was taken and this limulus assay was done, the docs would know almost immediately that this is sepsis and we've got to hop on it yesterday. There has to be a complete integration between the collecting department and the scientist, and it has to be mutual respect. And the quality is only as good as your effort and theirs as a collaboration, period.
The Tern was used primarily for gathering specimens to do science on. From a boat builder's perspective, the Tern is a really elegant shape. If you kind of take a look at her from the bow and imagine her going through the water, it seems like she'd slice through very well. We got her when she was too far gone to go in the water, so we never got to go out. But you can kind of see how she would handle some waves pretty well. And there's some interesting things going on back in the transom, where there's a bit of like a downturn at the transom that kind of looks like it's intentional, not just from aging. And that would be kind of to bring the bow down when it's on plane, to keep the bow from coming up too much. It's your traditional plank on frame, steam bent white oak frames with cedar planking. She's got a white oak shear strake, which adds a lot of strength. We got the counter, which is this centerline piece aft here that the prop shaft and the rudder go through. It's kind of showing its age, so we're going to replace that. New transom. Here at the community boat shop, basically we're just a group of volunteers that meet 2 times a week, guys and girls, just share a passion for boat building. Some might call it an illness. I think one of the things that we're really excited about is that kind of like the first splash again, after being out of the water, getting kind of back to her home waters and going and seeing some of the sights that she would have seen back in the day. It's just taking it out and just experiencing the boat in the water, taking her down to Cuddy Hunk and getting breakfast or something. It'll be a really fun launch party when the time comes. I think it'll be pretty emotional.